Greetings, everyone. I am Dr. Noni Davis, and it's so good to be here with you today. As you know, I am the current owner of St. Sia Academy, which is a African Center school in Durham, North Carolina, that has been established since 1996. I am a legacy owner. I inherited this business from my mother and father, William Edward Davis, the late William Edward Davis, and my mother, Sylvia Davis. And so today, I would like to share some of what I've learned on my journey with my school. I took 51 people on bus tour of Sankofa journey to Charleston, South Carolina, and the St. Helena Islands of where the Penn Center is, and we also went to Georgetown, where the Rice Museum is. We call it a Sankofa journey because Sankofa is an Akan symbol from the Ashanti people, and it means return to the past and learn for the future. And so it's a bird that has its chest facing forward, which is the future, but its head is looking backwards, meaning that it's looking at the past, examining what has already been done as it prepares for where it's going. And so that Sankofa bird is symbolizes what we do when we take these trips to different places. I've taken my students to Washington, D.C. We've gone to Tuskegee, Alabama, and to Dr. King's Center and Rosa Parks Museum. In those areas, we've been to, when we went to Washington, D.C., we went to Frederick Douglass's house. We went to the African American Museum there, the new one, and Mary McLeod Bethune's house, and Blacks and Wax Museum. We've taken the kids to on Sankofa journeys to Hampton, Virginia, and also to the Outer Banks. And every time we're looking for Black history in those areas. And we realize that it's crucial for the children to have a hands-on experience with these, and the parents too, because we have parents and teachers and students. But they need to have we take the living history, the things that we have spoken to them about and taught to them about in the classroom, now become a lived experience for them. And they may not grasp the fullness of it, but it's a wonderful experience for them. They can say they've been there, and at some later point, they may even say, have an opportunity to go and revisit these spaces, but with an understanding that, how important our history is. What did you learn from this space? And then what are you doing in the future? What is your role to continue to elevate and craft a, a future for your you and your family and future generations to come? So, we visited historical sites in Beaufort. We started our journey on Monday, March 11th, and we arrived there around 11 o'clock. And the Penn Center is located on Helena's Island. I don't know how many people are aware of this particular national historical site. Excuse me, African American historical site. Um, but it's significant for a lot of reasons. First of all, the people on St. Helena's Island were emancipated. Unlike the rest of us in 1861, the plantations on this island were abandoned. Europeans skedaddled as soon as they found out that the Union was coming, and so they had left the people. They left the Africans there by themselves, and never returned. And so what happened is that the African Americans there and the Union forces collaborated on what they would call, I'm trying to think, what is it that they call it, the Port Royal experiment, which was a rehearsal for Reconstruction. They said, okay, we're gonna, since you all are here, let's see if we can help you create autonomy and your own, space here, your own a little city or a little township. And so the Africans were given an opportunity to purchase back the land, not purchase back the land, but purchase the land that they're of their plantation owners. They were given an opportunity to start their own schools, start their own businesses, and just create their own governing structure right there at the end on that island. The Penn Center is significant because that is the first African American school in the South to be established. And this was in 1862. So 1861, the war started. Europeans left. 1862, Africans had begun to construct and develop their own space, their own township, their own governing space. Um, the Charlotte Fortin Krimke, who is a famous abolitionist, she was born in Philadelphia to freed parents who were also abolitionists. um when this when she found out that the Civil War had left this community and they were trying to build a school, two white women had already gone down there, but she was the first African American to go and start teaching in that environment. And she was able to journal her experience there, developing the school, watching the school expand. I don't know whether it was during her time, but over time, they created like a boarding school environment where students could live in dormitories, which are still standing there, all built by the students, by the community, by hand. And then you can see the dormitories there, which they still use for retreats. And they have their own church, everything constructed by their own hands. Um, I believe that the union did help them during Reconstruction. They were awarded funding to do some of this stuff, but they to construct these buildings and everything. But they did it all. It was all um, their own work by their own effort. Um, what is also fascinating about Penn Center that a lot of us may not know is that they had a lot of this during the 1950s and the 60s, a lot of the strategizing for the civil rights movement occurred there. You had Dr. King, you had SNCC, and you had organizations that would come and go into those retreat spaces where the dormitories are. And I think Fripp Island is adjacent to that space, and you could it's like a retreat. And they were able to Dr. King was able to craft his "I Have a Dream" speech, drafted there, and at the Penn Center, or in one of the facilities there. And like I said, there was the March on Washington in 1963. That a lot of strategy for that protest march was well, not protest, but that march was conducted over at the Penn Center and in that area. So it has a lot of historical significance. Um, I have also attended the Council of Independent Black Institutions. They have also had several retreats there, and I've attended two retreats there for CB. And so it's a very powerful space. And when you go there, one of the things I told the children before they exited the bus is understand that you're on hollowed ground. These were the people who survived the enslavement, whose prayers worked, and they were able to, their owners left, and just they were able to acquire all this land. And when you go on the site now, they have the Penn Center, they have some of the original buildings, like I said, they have a museum. The museum has showcases blacksmithing, the education buildings, the churches, businesses, farming, which were indigo, rice, and cotton, the land ownership. You see midwifery. You see artifacts from for decades worth of artifacts that they've collected, and then you also see some of the contemporary art that people have been inspired to do based on uh, their uh, uh, their experience at the Penn Center. And so I encourage everybody to go and visit the space. It's amazing. And um, you could feel the presence of ancestors out there. And I would say because I've done the John Canoe here at the Stagville plantation, you can also, it's the same kind of energy, but instead of feeling just the sorrow and the pain, this one kind of invigorates you because you see, wow, this was one of the first places where Africans were able to establish their own township and their own, uh, free space and maintain it. And in fact, the tour guide, Dr. Maria Gibbs, her family is Gullah Geechee, and they still own about 40 something acres of the property that they inherited 3, 4 generations ago, 4 or 5 some generations ago, as a result of their emancipation, where the Europeans escaped versus the Africans escaped. I just think that's hilarious that they ran away and they were able to stay and maintain their space. So that was one of the first major space that we visited. And then, later that day, we went to My Three Sons, which is, I'll give them a shout out. In Charleston, it's a restaurant there, a Black owned restaurant. Um, and then the next day, Tuesday morning, the 12th, we visited the International African American Museum, which is where we learned more. Dr. Gibbs introduced us to the Gullah Geechee culture and explained what that was, which I'll do in a minute. But we visited the International African American Museum, which is actually built on the site of Sullivan Island. Sullivan Island is where Africans were brought in on the ships and they disembarked right there. And so to be in a space where ancestors were brought, and their feet and they that the first encounter with this space, this area, South Carolina, was a very emotional space as well. And then later, that our second event that day was the Gullah Geechee tour. If you've been to the museum in Washington D.C., this museum is not the same size. The International African American Museum is not as large as that museum in D.C., but it is significant in that 40% of Africans who were brought into slavery came through Sullivan Island. And so that's where we were. We were low in a building dedicated, a hollow space, that it was where the first Africans to come in through enslavement. I mean, that was one of the major ports where they came in. Not the first place, but it was a major port for them. And then the final place we went to was the Rice Museum. The Rice Museum is about about an hour from Charleston, and that experience, as well as the Gullah Geechee tour. We did take a 2-hour Gullah Geechee tour, which took us all around the Charleston area. We went to Johns Island, James Island, and we saw the impact of we well the tour guide explained to us what when you see rows and rows of oak trees, that's usually indicative of a plantation, a space, area where a plantation used to be. And so he pointed out things like that. He pointed out the way that the Gullah Geechee built their houses, and so they would purchase a piece of land, and you see several houses on one piece of land, and that which indicated that all of those people were family members, and they would just parcel out a part of their land for it. So people build their houses, and they're good. They don't have to go, they pay taxes, of course, because we live in America, but they were able to establish their communities right next to each other, which is something that I also saw in Roseboro, which is where my grandmother's family is from, which she's also Gullah Geechee, because Gullah is not just North Carolina, which I'll get back to that in a minute. But I mean, not just South Carolina. But then you also have the churches that people built, other institutions that they built, and then you got to see the progress, or the more contemporary life of African Americans in that area. Those the descendants of the Gullah Geechee people, and what are they doing now? And some of them are in government. Some of them are have been mayors, and they've been councilmen in that area. And then, of course, several Black businesses all throughout the area. So it was a beautiful thing to see. And then people still own, like I said, a lot of their own land, which was significant. So the Rice Museum in Georgetown was probably the most difficult tour. And that is because you actually see the work that Africans were forced to do. When we say STEM or STEAM, we're talking about science, technology, engineering, and math. And of course, STEAM is when you add the art component to that. But you get to see the intensity, the inhumanity of the treatment of the people. Folks were given a life expectancy of 3 to 4 years because of the intensity of the work. They were children began working at the age of 4. The conditions of the swamp area for growing rice included alligators, poisonous insects, poisonous snakes, lots of disease. And so the combination of those factors in the crazy working hours. I mean, people would be out in the water for 12 hours, 15 hours, sunrise to sunset. Um, just a torturous lifestyle. So for any of us to even exist, when you realize that folks were only expected to live 3 to 4 years, and they were working as children, that was just it was awestruck. I was awestruck by that. Um, and especially as an educator, you're reading this information, but you actually see and hear and understand what that life really was about, was what we learned um, at the Gullah Geechee, I mean, the Rice Museum. We also saw the science, technology. And so the example of the science and technology, engineering, and math was that when Europeans were very specific about who they wanted to come into that region. So this is where the Gullah Geechee comes into. So they wanted to bring people who had a rice culture already. So the people they brought were Mandinga, Walla, Fulla, Mende, Vai, Akan, Ewe, Bakongo, and Kumbundu. And so these people were from Senegal, Mali, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Ghana, Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and then Ghana, and then Ivory Coast, and then all the way from Nigeria and Benin. and then around the corner got Angola and Congo. So people from that from the from Mali all the way around to Angola were taken, and specifically if they had a knowledge of indigo, a knowledge of cotton, and knowledge of rice. And those, and then if of course if they were blacksmiths, they needed them too. So people were selected, so it was very deliberate. You literally went to Africa to get the people who were the skilled laborers. So this whole idea of they were uneducated, didn't know who they were, didn't have any concept of science, math until Europeans taught them, it's literally a lie. What it was is that they got people who already had these skills and brought the because the geography of their areas were similar to South Carolina, and they said we're going to bring these people over here and do this work in this space in South Carolina and Georgia. So um what is fascinating is that when the Africans came here and they were given this directive, do it or die, do it or die, they had to now take I think they said 300 BC is when Africans had mastered the cultivation of rice. So 300 BC, and now you are here in the 1700s trying to do this. So how many years later is that? That's the 17th. So we're like 2,000 years later, you're trying to bring this technology into um the into an area that that's like what do they call it, it's virgin land, it's never had rice here grown here. I mean, so they had to look at the landscape, uh the engineering, and figure out how were they going to do this, what is the science. So they had to learn the geography, they had to understand the waterways, they had to understand the tidal waves. You got salt water, you got fresh water, how do you control the intersection of these different waterways, and which can have a significant impact on the rice. You can't grow rice in salt water. So how are you going to keep these separated? Then you had to also know which rice would survive, which strand of rice or genetic rice will be able to grow in that area. And then the math is just measuring off these spaces. And so in one of the things that the tour guide at the Rice Museum explained to us, and it was also in one of the documentaries, is that this level of science was the equivalent of what the was involved in the construction of the pyramids in Egypt. For them to successfully develop this process was the highest level of technology, because people haven't even repeated the pyramids, the way the pyramids were constructed. They put up some glass stuff, but they have not taken these 22 ton, 2,000 or 2 million ton bricks and moved them and places. They created this other stuff. So of glass and steel and whatever, and it looks like a Lego block thing that they did, whatever. But our ancestors did the real pyramids. So this was for it to be compared to that level of science, technology, engineering, math. I'm like, and they how many black children, if they knew and understood the intelligence of our ancestors to be able to do this, of course, under the gun, because most people fall apart under the stress of something like that. But our ancestors met the demand, and as a result, rice became gold, Carolina gold, and South Carolina was the second wealthiest colony in of the 13 colonies. I think Massachusetts was one, and South Carolina was second, ranked second. And they were extremely prosperous. We saw the wealth was like the billionaires club. Which you if you were to go to a billionaires club, Elon Musk and all those folks, billionaire, that's the level of wealth, comparable wealth that the people in Georgetown had based on the rice culture of African people. And our science, our technology, our ingenuity, our art, and our mathematical understanding. And so the Gullah Geechee culture is literally a blend of all of those people that I introduced you to. The Akan from Ghana, the Ewe from Ghana, and from Ivory Coast, and the Bakongo, and the Mende, and the Vai, which are from Liberia and Sierra Leone, and the Kumbundu of Angola, and the Mandinke, and the Wolof, and the Fula of Senegambia. And my ancestors are Fula, and I also have ancestors that are Mende. So it is very possible that my ancestors came through that 40% of Africans who were brought into this country. And if you have folks who live on the coast, the Gullah Geechee corridor extends from Florida, which is where the Spanish first landed in the 1500s, and had a whole fight with Mandinkas who kicked them um, out of the area and established Fort Mose and had their own black township also. And then you had Georgia, so Florida, Georgia, the Spanish also ruled Georgia, and they had a different relationship with the Africans there. If you said bow your knee to the Catholic Church, we make you free. You do your thing. And then you had North Carolina, and you also had South Carolina and North Carolina. So those were the those all of those coastal areas from Florida all the way to North Carolina is where you is called the Gullah Geechee corridor. And it's because those people blended their language, they blended their culture, they blended their spiritual systems, they blended their science, their cooking techniques, their cultural values, their languages, all of that were blended in and created Gullah and Geechee. And Gullah is from the Angola word, is believed to be from Angola. Geechee is from this Gizzy word from Liberia. And so the blend of it is Gullah and Geechee. And I think Gullah is usually South Carolina. Geechee is usually referred to people from Georgia. But um, one of the things that Dr. Gibbs at the Penn Center explained was that if you have parents who are grandparents or great grandparents who speak that dialect, then you're more than likely Gullah Geechee. And so I'm happy to say that I heard my grandmother, Minnie T. Minnie Tatum Davis from Roseboro, definitely spoke in the Gullah Geechee dialect. And so I am a descendant of Gullah Geechee people. And so it was a powerful experience. I encourage everyone, when you go, wherever you go, when you take your children somewhere, take them, find the Black history in that space, because it is so empowering. I literally felt like I went, I got the anointing and a flowing of ancestral energy. And it's like a booster shot, like this, you get a COVID booster. I got a booster shot of of Blackness, of melanin, of affirmation, of just understanding of who I am and who my people are. And just it revives you, because you understand if they were able to endure this, okay, here comes Trump with his foolishness. Okay, here comes when these white nationalists, okay, we see you, but we beat you and we will beat you again. You will not, we will overcome. We will overcome. And so that's my conclusion of my Sankofa journey to the Gullah Geechee corridor of South Carolina. Say, Ashe.
Hi, my name is Kim Green, and I am one of the founders of Black, Bases Loaded, Authentic Clothing and Caps, spelled with a K. We have the distinct pleasure every day of introducing the world to people that have had a tremendous impact on our country. In doing so, we're allowing the accomplishments of these groups to both be celebrated and acknowledged, while our customers are provided the opportunity to commemorate them with high quality and stylish attire. Black specializes in licensed apparel for Negro League Baseball, Buffalo Soldiers, and the Tuskegee Airmen. We started Black to act as an educational partner to museums nationwide to not only inform everyday Americans on Black history, but to celebrate the individuals that played on segregated sports teams and served in segregated units of the military. The problem we're solving is twofold. One, Black history, which is American history, has been excluded from the core curriculum in our children's schools. And two, when we started the company, it was and really still is hard to find high quality Black history apparel. Our goal is to change both of those things.
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.